Hi, and welcome to this presentation from RISE, which is the Retrofit Information Support and Expertise Service. We're here this afternoon to look at the Warm Home Social Housing Fund and some challenges and errors and clarifications of the application form. My name is Gareth Field. I'm a senior consultant at Turner & Townsend, and I've been working on the RISE programme, supporting applicants to work through their applications for Wave 3. So in this slide deck, we're aiming to clarify some of the questions and some of the answers that are expected, and there's a few errors in the application form that we'll just work through and kind of help clarify and help you with your applications. There is more information on the government website, so feel free to go to the government website. There is a spreadsheet on there of all these sort of application numbers, which application form it relates to, and some of the answers for these problems. But if there's any other challenges you have or questions you want to raise, please get in touch with rise@turntown.co.uk and we'll do all that we can to help you in your applications. So these slides have been separated out. So the yellow section is where the challenge is in the application form. So we will highlight what the question was and where the issue is with that. The green boxes are around solutions of what the answer has been from Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. And then you'll also see sections of blue, and they are the sections taken from the application form. So hopefully to bring this to life, and so you can recognise where that question is and what the answer is and what you are to do with that as you go forwards. So the first section we're going to talk about is some of the declarations at the beginning of all the application forms. So in the declaration, there is a declaration around the Procurement Act, and this is affected in the fact that there was a delay on the Procurement Act and until the 24th of February 2025. So in relation to this task, in this declaration, the response can be left clear, yes, no, or blank. It will have no effect on your application. So as you're going through your declarations, when you get to that one, you have to just either leave it blank or put yes, no. Again, it doesn't matter in relation to the application. Within the declarations, there is a question around the safety, and in there's been a typo around this. So instead of talking about principal designers, it talked about principal designs. So just to be aware that they're talking about principal designers there. So just a slight change there in the declaration. The section 1 now about applicants' details, and as we go through this, we'll break it down as to whether it's Challenge Fund or Strategic Partnership Fund, or where it's in both. So in all forms, in question 1.2, it asks for the name of the lead applicant. There's been some confusion on this as to whether this is about the person applying for it or the organisation. So just to clarify here, it is about the organisation. So if you are a local authority, it will be your local authority's name or a housing association's name. In 1.27, in Strategic Partnerships Fund, it asks for a signature of the person who is responsible within the organisation for the application. So this might be your CEO, CFO, or somebody of that level in the executive team. There is no place to actually put a true signature in. Is just fit the person's name in and the person's details into that role there. So again, it's not about trying to fit a picture into there or get them to sign anything. It's just a name. For the Challenge Fund, the same question is 1.29 and the same response is there. So it's not about a physical signature. It's just about putting the person's name and contact details in there so that there's a reference point there for anybody to contact. In 1.9, for the Challenge Fund Consortium and Strategic Partnerships Consortium, so in both application processes, in the consortium there, it's important to put down the lead applicant on that list, because this list gets pulled through to other elements of the application form. And if you miss out putting the lead applicant there, it will miss out further through the application form. So it's really important to get every member here in this application form as part of the list of consortium members. Section 2 for the strategic fit. So question 2.4 in the Challenge Fund and Strategic Partnerships, This is a question around the number of homes that you have, which are already at EPC plus. So this could be properties that are on an infill basis or are getting the low carbon heating incentives. So the figure listed for this question should not include homes which are already at EPCC. So if you are doing 1,000 homes and 10 of those are already at EPCC, the number going into there is 990. Within the Challenge Fund and Strategic Partnerships, there has been an error identified that the error identification box is incorrectly flagging around the total number of homes. So you can see in this example here, the two numbers of homes here in the two tables match, but it's flagging as an error. So if the applicants have entered the same number of homes in each part of this question, they should ignore the issue identified message. It will not impact upon your application. You need to make sure that those numbers do match and they are right, and they are consistently right throughout the application form. But here is a point where there is an error in the formulas, and you just need to make sure that you're putting the right numbers in, and if appropriate, ignore the issues box. So into section 3 for delivery forecast. This is in the Challenge Fund and Strategic Partnerships Fund. There are two scenarios where the issue identified box incorrectly indicates that co-funding contribution is less than 50%. These are when the applicant indicate homes will access the on-gas grid low carbon heating incentive. Also when applicants want to request a grant funding amount that is less than the maximum available grant funding. We're going to work through this and show you some examples of what this means. So, as you can see here on this table, we've put 100 homes in for the on-gas grid low carbon heating incentive. That has caused the error to come up in the issues identified box. In this situation, you should ignore the issue identified message. It will not impact on your application. By putting those 100 homes in there, we have changed the maximum grant funded capital costs, which has then obviously moved the co-funding out of sync, and it moves it out to the 50%. So check through this, make sure you're putting the right number of homes into your previous tables, and then as you put these extra homes in, it might then create an issue identification. In this situation, we ignore this message. The other example that we mentioned was when you want to spend less than the maximum grant funding. So the maximum grant funding, if you are putting 100 homes in at, it will automatically populate those at the £7,500 capital amount. If you are thinking that those homes are going to cost less and your co-funding is less to match with what you predict the actual cost to be, if you put a smaller co-funding capital amount in, it will trip the issues identified box. In this case, you will ignore that issues identified box, and DESNZ will come back to you at a later time for confirmation of what the grant funding amount is and what the capital amount is. This will be done at a later date after your application. So if you know you want to spend less than the maximum grant funding allowed and you understand this, then put that amount into your application form. What there is asked of this is that you put a small explanation into the next question. So a short explanation for the level of co-funding stated in this question must then be provided in the next section. So as you move down the application form, in the free text box, just add in a small amount of what your actual expected total grant funding is. So there we go, it just summarises that up. So the actual requested grant funding amount will need to be formally communicated to DESNZ at a later date, so it can be correctly listed for the grant funding agreement. DESNZ will provide more information on this process to relevant applicants at a later date. So don't worry if you feel like you have to spend the maximum grant allowance, you don't, and you can put in a smaller grant amount into your application form. Question 3.8 for Challenge Fund and Strategic Partnerships is 3.7. So there's a lack of clarity as to whether the examples listed in the question guidance must be addressed. So in this, as you're writing your application, whether you need to cover every point that's in the guidance. So the guidance from DESNZ and on this is that you are expected to reference at least 2 approaches from the list provided in the question guidance. So as you work through about what you're going to do, is think through your actions and what you're going to be doing, and making sure that you hit at least 2 of the suggested approaches from DESNZ. If you're hitting more, fantastic, but you should be at least hitting 2 of those. Section 5, delivery assurance and evaluation. In question 5.2, there is no direct reference to quality in the question guidance. As with all of these things, we would expect the application to cover quality as well as time and cost in your response. We all understand that we want these work to be done at the highest quality standard and to meet all compliance with PAS and other regulations. So in your response, make sure that you cover meeting quality standards and any assurance standards that need to be met for that work. In question 5.4, there is a small typo on here. So as you look down, 5.4 is not asking you to confirm that Annex D has been submitted. That relates to the question above. 5.4 is on the question below, which is this question. So if you look at the applications, you will see that there's this question with no number attached to it. That is question 5.4. That's the end of this presentation on this. As with all these things, please feel free to review this presentation, listen to it again, go through the questions. There will also be a workbook, which is these slides available on the RISE website next week. Please feel free to download a copy and to work through the slides and help you understand the questions and the answers responding to those questions. If you have any further inquiries, please do not hesitate to reach out to RISE on email address, so rise@turntown.co.uk, or if you're already engaged with us, reach out to your support manager for extra support and help in relation to the questions. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to deliver this presentation to you, and I hope you found it useful, and good luck in your applications.